things that is maybe a little radical about this book as a book on self-healing is that I really approach healing as a communication task rather than a medical problem to solve. And how many of you have been sick with some mysterious creeping crud and you've gone to doctor after doctor or practitioner after practitioner, they all have helped a little, but it hasn't fixed the problem. And I think that it's a little like trying to analyze Shakespeare using chemistry. Mm-hmm. We're poems. We are works of art. Mm-hmm. And communication is built into us. It's not something we add on. Yeah. Everything we do to understand reality is rooted in what I'm calling communication, the ability to perceive something and then codify it into some kind of language, whether it's the visual language of image or the language of sound or the language of words or the language of gesture and movement or the language of subtle relationship exchanges that we don't even have real words for, but some people are really good at those. So that's what I really dig into or dive into in the book, is that notion that healing isn't really about what's wrong with me medically. Yeah. What's wrong with me medically is because something isn't communicating that needs to, whether it's the soul not communicating to the mind or the soul not communicating to the body or the mind having a different agenda from the body. Yes. And I talk about it as three selves: an earth elemental self, a talking self, which is your mind or the self that creates dramas and identities, and the wiser self, which is kind of the soul. And I really play with how each of these contribute to a committee of self. And when we get sick, it's because our committee's not working so well anymore.
That's beautiful. And I think everybody can understand that. That's logical, really.
Logical to our intuition and our way of perceiving reality. Because I'll tell you what, I mean, I wish I spoke Latin and knew all those things, but I can't participate in that because I don't know the terminology and I don't know the conceptual framework and I'm not a scientist, but I can totally participate in the poem that is my life. That is my body.
And that makes life better. It makes life better if you participate with your own energies. And as Ellen said, I mean, we're poems.
We are poems. We are good poems.
It's things that happens when you start participating, as Ellen is speaking about, is you begin to build habits in your body where your body will begin to communicate with you a little bit more frequently and be right up front with you so that it doesn't even wait for you to talk to it.
One of the things that I believe strongly is that if you keep asking what's wrong with me, what's wrong, you're going to get the same answers. You're going to get information about what's wrong. And that takes up time that could be about what's right or what's needed. So if you shift the question from what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my body, what's wrong with my mind, and you shift it to what is needed in this moment, first of all, in this moment, not overall big picture, what do I need right now? And often right now what you need is take a breath or lie down or have a sip of water. What you need in that moment. If we listen moment by moment by moment, that guidance is golden, but we're used to asking that big definitional question. I don't even know if that's a word. The better question, I think, is what's needed in order for me to truly be well now and now and now and now.
I had multiple sclerosis from the time I was 16 to 31. But it was in my late 20s that I knew I was going to have to do something for myself. And I had gone to 5 different specialists who all said there was nothing that could be done. And 3 of them gave terminal prognoses for me. And I don't know what happened, but I've always thought it was, first of all, one of the best things that ever happened to me, that I was told that Western medicine couldn't help me. But it was also a spiritual moment. It was like, oh, and I went home and I was not depressed. Instead, I thought, wow, what can I do here? What shall I do? I'm going to figure this out. And there was such an excitement in me and a sense of curiosity, which turned out to be, I mean, it led me, it guided me. It was my North Star, the excitement and the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that the body does know how to heal itself, I listened and I followed and I kept going until I was well. I was finally well. My body knows how to heal itself, as does every body here on this planet. And it's a joy. It's a joy to listen and follow that the signs, the signals, listening in. And so that's what you're going to get to learn how to do with Ellen's book.
I love what you said about curiosity and excitement, because think about how many times you come home from a doctor's appointment. And usually what you're experiencing and talking about is not the curiosity and excitement you feel because you can take a pill or, sometimes you get excited because you get a diagnosis and it's kind of nice to have that for a while until you realize, well, I don't know what to do about that.
That's
It's just a descriptor usually. So I think, there's elements to healing that get lost when we think of ourselves as bags of chemistry instead of these evolving, shifting, I call them webs of meaning. They're energies that interact in these webs of meaning.
Absolutely.
And when we can liberate ourselves to participate in the creation of our own web of meaning, and being sick it's meaningful in a way, but it kind of poisons the web of meaning. It's hard to feel like we can participate in life if we're too ill. But the more we weave wellness into every moment, even if we're flat on our back, and you did that, you were lying there, you couldn't, I believe you couldn't talk, right, or walk.
There were times I would go into phases where my mouth wouldn't work anymore, my whole face would freeze, my whole body would freeze, and I couldn't do anything. But it is really interesting when you get onto this wavelength of working with that web of meaning. I mean, it changes you and you get more curious, not less, you get more. Or if something doesn't work, you think, I wonder why, I'm going to figure this out. And you've got your own little science project. Right. And it begins to thrill you, and you get more and more energy, by the way, from having the curiosity and the excitement, and you don't go into despair if something doesn't work. You just know there is an answer somewhere, because we inherited this ability to heal ourselves. Our ancient ancestors had to have healed themselves because we're around because they survived. And so they learned over time. Plus they knew they were a part of nature. I loved, Ellen, how you talked about when you were walking uphill and it was a struggle, but it wasn't the struggle for you as it was for your friend, because you had this energy coming up through your feet and it would just carry you up the hill.
Yes.
And our ancestors, I believe, must have felt that they were a part of nature, and so that they could pull on the energy from nature, and just like nature has its cycles, so do our bodies.
Yes.
And
I have a whole chapter on that topic.
Yes.
In the book. And I think it is so important. It is learning what we already knew or know. And that excitement that you talked about and the curiosity, that is what activates the healing that is built into this instrument. I mean, it's kind of like, where's the instruction manual? I mean, I spent the first many years of my life going, where is the instruction manual? I don't know what to do with this thing. And then I realized it's built in. It's just there. It's like the help menu on your computer. It's up in the corner and just click it and it comes. And it's so exciting and rewarding. But I think there's a another reason why it's healing, not just because it's fulfilling. It's not fun to have MS and lie there and be unable to walk and talk. You make it sound less unfun than I'm pretty sure it was. But in any situation, even when you have pain, when you activate your interest, when you activate your curiosity, when you activate your soul, the yearning in you, not to just be done with the pain, but to reach towards something that's personally expressive and meaningful for you, it activates energies that you talk about as radiance.
Yes.
In Eden Energy Medicine, I talk about them because I learned it in your system too. We have these two relational energy features, and one we both call radiance, and one I call the gatekeeper. It is the self that limits and shapes and defines you. It keeps the gates of self. It says what can come in, what has to stay out. Who am I? Who is not me? What's not me? And it's really your immune system, right? On the physical level, it's the immune system. We know most illness has a strong immune part to it. It's also your emotional and energetic and spiritual immune system. I call that gatekeeper. It's very related to what you have been teaching for years called the triple warmer energy system.
Yes.
They're cosmic partners, the radiance and the gatekeeper. The radiance says, let's expand. Let's bring so much spirit to this. We don't care if we're in pain. It's the endorphins that help us rise above the discomfort or the illness. And then there's the gatekeeper saying, oh, no, I have to keep this shape. I have to stay in body here because I don't want to float off. And that's the keeper of the habits and the identity. And you talked a little about forming positive habits. We also have to know how to work with habits that keep us from our radiance.
Yes.
And a lot of illness goes back to, especially chronic illness, goes back to those stuck habits. I call them templates, and I talk in the book about how can you start to clear those little programs that tell the autopilot to be miserable over and over and over.
Yes.
Because I think it's an important part of getting the energies moving, finding balance between those two cosmic partners of radiance and gatekeeping.
Yes. And likewise, that also speaks of being negative or being positive. I think all human beings would like to be happier in life. And when you activate the radiance in your energies, you get happier. It's a natural. You don't have to struggle to get happy or to find a reason to be happy.
Right.
It's not just your spirit, by the way. It's the energies flow differently when you feel happy and alive.
They really do. And they start feeding the organs and they feed the body differently and things start healing. How many people, who are listening have been like sitting feeling like you're sick or you're getting sick or nothing's working in your life, and then the phone rings and it's like an old friend that you totally love, or it's good news, you just won the lottery or something. And all of a sudden all those symptoms start to dissolve because they've activated the radiant circuits.
Yes.
The radiance that feeds and basically shapes the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper likes to shape things, but the radiance reshapes it.
And when you can't get happy, get curious about why you can't. Where is the energy in me that I can move? Or in your terms, those three selves: the earth self,
the earth elemental self, the talking self, and the wiser self.
So get curious.
Yeah.